Good evening. Welcome. I'm Rosemary McGee, and I'm honored to serve as director of the Stuart A. Rose Manuscript Archives and Rare Book Library. I love to take the moment, the opportunity, and there are a few seats scattered up here, so please feel free to come join us towards the front. I love to take the opportunity when people are gathered together to share our mission of the Rose Library, and that is that we connect and collect stories of human experience, promote access and learning, and offer opportunities for dialogue for all wise hearts who seek knowledge. This is the first public event in our series celebrating the Beat Generation, and it's associated with our official opening tomorrow evening of The Dream Machine, the Beat Generation and the Counterculture, 1940 to 1975. And this exhibition explores and examines a colorful and raucous cast of characters who shaped post-World War II American literature and culture. I want to take a moment to thank all who have brought this together, the exhibition and the evening, and this includes designers, planners, archivists, curators, students, and faculty, and that is another somewhat raucous group. And great fun and inspiring to work with us. Most of us would agree that the poetry and protests of the mid-20th century are still shaping our thoughts of what it means to think, act, live, and write, especially in times of major cultural disruption, shall we say. Hence, our exhibition is relevant to that past and to the present, and we believe for the future. Perhaps there's no way to embody such thoughts and beliefs than through poetry itself, which reflects and guides our emotional pathways, even through personal and social transformations. Thus, it is our delightful pleasure to begin this exhibition pre-opening event with poetry, and especially to have a very special guest, poet Anne Waldman, among us, whose thought-provoking work is also featured in our exhibition. Here to introduce her is my colleague in the Rose Library, Anne Waldman, who this year is satisfying multiple roles in co-curating with Sarah Harsh, also here, the exhibition, also teaching, and working with all of us gathered here to infuse life with literature. Anne Waldman.
Good evening. Thank you, Rosemary, for your introduction and for your untiring support of the Danowski Poetry Library and the Danowski Poetry Library Reading Series. I'm pleased and honored to welcome you to this, our first reading of the 2017-2018 season. I think we're starting it off pretty well. I'd also like to thank Leslie Wingate and her team at Campus and Community Relations for making this event possible, especially Maya Cody, our indefatigable events manager. I'd also like to thank Christina Kosiba of the Rose Library and Paula Vitaris of the Creative Writing Program for their help with the logistics around this event. It's just not possible to do this without support. Also the Hightower Fund for making this possible on the financial side, and of course all of you for joining us this evening. So when a number of us were sitting around a table a few months ago, or actually almost a year now, discussing whom we might invite to help us kick off the Beats exhibition and the season of the reading series, none of us hesitated over what name should top that list: Anne Waldman. It is difficult to describe the impact Waldman has had on contemporary experimental poetics, a tradition she calls outrider poetry. A poetry not of the outsider necessarily, but of those who push forward the boundary of what's possible. As a poet and essayist, she's the author of over 40 books and counting, from her classic incantatory chant, Fast-Speaking Woman of 1974, to her sprawling feminist epic, the Eovis trilogy. Waldman has indeed worked the edge of what can be done on the page and in performance, drawing on a vast array of resources and traditions to craft a voice all her own. As an editor, Waldman has carefully preserved and made accessible the ongoing legacies of 20th century poetics, working tirelessly to ensure that this work remains in print and on the shelves and in the hands of new generations of aspiring poets. As an organizer and an instigator, Waldman has been instrumental in building some of the most storied institutions of contemporary literature. The Poetry Project at St. Mark's Church in New York, which he co-founded and led for a decade, and the Jack Kerouac School of Disembodied Poetics at the Naropa Institute in Boulder, Colorado, which he also co-founded and which he continues to teach to this day. In short, do a little digging into nearly any corner of today's poetry world, and you're likely to find signs of Waldman's presence, building communities, sending publications to press, and raising platforms for those around her and those writing in her wake. She is a force of nature. I was somewhat at a loss trying to sum up the important role Waldman has played in the life of contemporary poetry throughout her career, until the poet herself offered me the perfect term while spending time with my students earlier today. Anne Waldman is a cultivator of the rhizome. What do I mean by that? A rhizome is a root structure that extends horizontally in all directions, creating a vast subterranean network of connection, affiliation, and mutual sustenance. This is how Waldman explained the outrider tradition to my students, and the image seems apt to describe the ethos that underlies the many accomplishments of her career. Waldman tends to the roots, linking writers together, weaving a tapestry of community and creation that spreads outwards from the publications she's founded, the texts she's championed, and the institutions she's reared to support and extend the reach of these networks. In this way, her own mission seems very well aligned with the familiar one to many of us here of the archives, whose aim is to preserve and make accessible the conversations, exchanges, and chance encounters that make art possible. In this way, Waldman is a curator in the etymological sense of the word, one who takes care, who cultivates, who works to unlock the potential of the ties that bind us all. We are beyond fortunate to have her here with us tonight, giving us yet another occasion to draw close and to feel the networks of affiliation that run beneath our feet. Please join me in welcoming Anne Waldman.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's so wonderful to be here. Thank you, Aaron, for making it possible. And a shout out to Kevin Young, of course, and to Rosemary and Sarah and all the people who've worked on this magnificent show. So I hope you'll all see it and spend hours. It's so generative and relevant and continues the rhizome. So I'm going to jump through a selection of things, but I thought I'd start with the wonderful broadside that was produced for this occasion. And this is a poem I wrote right after the poet Allen Ginsberg died. And it's never been in this kind of form. In fact, it only appeared in a book some years ago. And so I wrote a note. I continually see years on through Allen Ginsberg's tender eye wherever I travel, China, India, Morocco, Mexico, Europe, and USA, where the body politic is riven, and with all of the rest of the planet locked in Anthropocene suffering. How morph from endless war, hurricanes of climate change, weapons in space, and overall greed and violence of Capitalocene. This will consume our reason, our existence a long time, yet resistance and spirit of the Beat movement as a spiritual experiment gives strength and is kindred to an impossible, braver world of tolerance, compassion, imagination's other place. And then a quote from Howell: "The madman, bum, and angel beat in time, unknown, yet putting down here what might be left to say, in time come after death." So this is notes on sitting beside a noble corpse, light breeze stirring the curtains, blue, faint tremor of his blue shroud. And I just come in from the Kerouac School in Boulder as he was dying. So this was right after his death that I met Allen in this new form, and it triggered this response. The monks, the Tibetan Buddhist monks, with his teacher Gelik Rinpoche. We're chanting the Chakra Samvara Sadhana. This is April 5th, 1997. Allen Ginsberg will never raise this body up, go out, board a shiny airplane, travel 1,000 miles, Denver, thousands, Milano, Prague, to pump the harmonium. How ecstatically he does this. Chant Om Namo Shivaya, all ashes again. Allen Ginsberg will never sit across the street hunched over Chinese noodle bowl. The old professors stayed up late reading the young poet's poems. Allen Ginsberg will never meditate this body, spine straight to heaven, holding up the roof of the world on the bright orange cushion. Allen Ginsberg's eyes will never water again of tear gas, Bell's palsy, or flow on the death of a guru. Read Blake Shelley lines to freeze your soul, and you weep, and the whole of Naropa disembodied Kerouac tent is weeping. Allen Ginsberg will never tell awkward teen boy he's known since birth he's sexy again from hospital bed. The boy stood at the window while his mother sobbed because Allen Ginsberg said he's dying today. Allen Ginsberg will never brush this corpse's thin hair, get groomed, oil feet, brush teeth. He's so conscientious. Mix mushrooms, leek, and winter squash breakfast again. The telephone rings. Allen Ginsberg will never answer it again. Allen Ginsberg will never embarrass China, Russia, the White House, dead corrupt presidents, Cuba, the CIA universe again. But Allen Ginsberg will ever ease the pain of living with human story and song that's born on wings of perpetual prophecy. Life and death's a spiral. He's mounting the stairs now with Vajra Yogini. Full centuries, brilliant Allens gone in other myriad forms live on. See through this palpable skull's tender eye. Kind mind, don't die. So I want to thank this wonderful production. It's such an honor to have this printed so beautifully. So I'm just going to leap into some things and jump around through some recent, very new texts. And I do want to start with this quote that I found that seems appropriate to read here. This is from a writer called Pogue Harrison, and it's a book called Forests. Maybe some of you know this book. This is just a little excerpt. The scale of transformations we are witnessing today has no precedent either in natural or cultural history. The global uprooting of both nature and humanity make each and every one of us a refugee of sorts. How long we remain refugees on the earth, no one can say, but the fact of homelessness has now become obvious even to the most privileged or protested members of the human family. What is not obvious to us, on the other hand, are the potential saving forces that one day may rise up against the tide of nihilism. It may be well that in the future, these decades will be remembered above all for the improbable existence of a handful of poets who brought the old household gods into hiding. From our present perspective, nothing seems more superfluous to the contemporary turbulence of history than poets. Yet our present perspective may turn out to be the most superfluous thing of all. This much is certain. At a time when the gods have no choice but to flee from the falling city of man, it is only the poets who can take them into their safekeeping. So. This is a very sympathetic place. It's so great to be in a community of such attention to poetry and the exhibit that you have here and the conversation and the students I've encountered so far. Okay, denouement. This came out of protest in New York in the city last winter. And it's a longer text. It's part of a new manuscript called Trickster Feminism. And the day would be proud of itself, going on as if it hadn't already collapsed, had not been destroyed, riven, all the people mad and metabolically downcast. It's around the eyes, it's around the hearts. The city was reeling. People were coming out to the street in the way they wanted to see where the big guy lived and boasted so as to mock the event. It wasn't over. It wasn't going to rest. The guy was not real as the day, as the year, the century, the epic shared was not real. The tribulation he ensued was not real, but it was that affect that mattered. What would suffer? It was the warmest year on record, as if that wasn't enough to make some idiot pause and pausing resist, and if resisting insist on being heard and calibrated so that measures were taken round the clock, ice caps photographed, melting and all the rest, a pole away from accountability. How ugly would it go? Resistance had to resist, and there were women everywhere, children women and girl women and they women and fluid women and men who were women and boy women and women from the past on the tongues of mind and heart, and images of women everywhere, ancestors and grandmothers and warriors and tricksters, and everyone woman, everyone was woman that day. I am woman, they said, and it had already happened. If you stopped to think the struggle in heaven, it was winning over, but could the earthly heart hold it? Would it matter? Someone had gotten up and walked this far and then paused to take stock for the last time. It was the last time the human had a chance, the last one to be observant and cry and stomp and take stock and be like the something that had melted. And if healing could ever be, would it be theater, a spectacle, come pay, like the kabuki you just saw, imitating the resolution between a sword and a fox, a country and its honor, the last straw of honor in this worldly sphere, and it's all recorded somewhere and impermanent unless you can see with visionary eyes, broken on its back, and being broken was your key to compassion, was that link, the adhesion synapse where you might meet other in blue of sky, a midnight blue, a celestial blue was invoked in the silk scarf that draped the emperor's chair where he sat timeless and waiting for the play to begin. He was temporarily on pause, a moment, a mechanism that played to its own time, a false entitlement, false rhythm and not in time with the spheres. We were it played upon, and sand we were, and we were, and we were that scarf and that silken scarf and played upon, and sand, it was like sand, it was falling through the clock. We were the scarf too that would be a shroud for this time, this dystopic time that signaled collapse, but not static, not disenfranchised exactly, but could that be true and yet be denouement with hope still streaming in beneath the surface, and then dark applause from all the centuries come raining down. She had been up on Fifth Avenue mumbling mantras of pacifying, magnetizing, and destroying as she circled the tower, giving a wide berth. Om man be gone, Om man be gone, Om Khan be gone, Om Khan be gone. She gathered up all wealth of mind, material richness as she gazed into holiday windows, and it wasn't holiday anymore. It was tribulation, prelude into twilight, an irreparability for the shimmering crystals, the glimmer of this edge of baubles and adornments. Maybe one might crave not this, not this. Earlier, the carillon rang clear from a sanctuary on 53rd Street into the streets, and the people cheered and felt the bells ringing inside their selves, gave them further power to rebuke normalization. Times wanted to demand of them, people, oh, people, and we were in our modest rain gear, coats of woolens made for long treks across deserts of hope and fear. The visitation that night in front of a fire, watching the patterns in the light, playing out a skiamaki, a war of shadows. Remembering the flood she was inside of that might return, there were warnings, the closeness of fire and water and ice and breaks in ground of tired earth. This earth holds you. What other earth have you ever known? How all elements dance in collusion that all the sophisticated algorithms could not hold. They are just wisps on the screen of mind, imprinted there for future entanglements. I'll just stop there. It does go on. There's a little bit of this MASH Judith Butler poem. This is from Trickster Feminism, so it's called MASH Butler. Pleasures do not emanate from the biological body, crush on you at present time that which the thing is in fact fitting to liken to the father's ambivalence. XX chromosomes perform this accomplishment. Stylized repetition. Are you genitally organized? Is no thing here variety of form, reproducing, and is ontology? Is Timaeus and haunting? Let's return to the ancients. Is routed? Where is race? Where is class? Woman, a trap, a fool's coat, a beau's voyeur, no Christ saver, but no one butts her, not irrigating the system, a witty, wigged one, hermaphrodite combine, not a mother, but like a mother, not a chora, but like a chora, semiotic persistence like irrigare, not irrigare, but irrigare, not Christeva, but like Christeva, rival feminist ontology, that matter has a feminine mater, gender to be exploded, ain't easy, can't wait, isn't cause, can't wait, a nucleocentric assumption, isn't it not but a system which body is assumed to require maternity and law of itself, heteronormativity, mimicry, no way. I was born but nothing perfect, sex body not a given, and then, just saying. Thank you. And this is a poem for the poet John Ashbery, who passed away, as probably some of you know, about 3 weeks ago now. And I was remembering his early visit to the Kerouac School in Boulder, and also just the importance of his work for a lot of us in our 20s. I met him when I was 20. He had just published, I think Rivers and Mountains had come out in '66, but we had all read The Tennis Court Oath, which was a radical shift of way you could write through kind of cut up and rearrangement and certain kind of mind. It was no longer just that official verse, left-hand side margin that the poem wasn't, it was playing, it was practicing around content. It wasn't as content-driven as things seem to want to be. And it's very distinctive, and he was also very encouraging and available. So for John, shadow behind eclipse. When he died, a temperature went down. Trees in the sky above Flatirons, tremor there. Oh, didn't, then did, see? We were driving in the canyon moons ago when he had said then, closing in, fool for this love. He was our drumming ritual if you were a berserker and willed by constellations. He was our prize for being born, this world through school time, through bliss, through saltiness in the question, can gentlemen do without? Next to another, you, how sometimes were included. They, you, it, things didn't have to bond, but in poetry happen. And now, listen to his voice with eyes gone wild for flowers, scratchy reel-to-reel, 1966, sacred fury of a primordial world, half-mannish garb on the sentence, a profile in the hallway across all crystal neuro pathways. Mirror, mirror, up to nature, and we had a glimpse. He was our respite, midnight excursions off limits, sometimes a candle at the brain wondering, fallen star? What rhymed with it? Espoir, hope, blood, heart held supine. Never retreat from scrutiny or miss the enemy, burnt leaf smell like resin. He was our fear of a sentence, half dreamed if we couldn't visualize, seize the whole. He was our vessel, cave and boot, train ride to the province, meandering by river, panic to be left out of this landscape. A picnic, whole tome memorized, many colors. He was our vanguard of non-self, scent and doubt, of deep carriage into the unknown. What do you know of it if you know him not? When he did laugh, he did, and muse. That was a blue eye special. He was putting things together. He was our cosmology, our cosmography in a better world you could count on. Relief, release. Thank you. In the mind of end time, it looks like this: Shell, Velut, Tabriz, Aleppo, Kabul, eddies and tides. When you wake, observe the unmitigated trials and tribulations of these tossed things. Random, it seems, but in the end, time is waiting. Less personhood, more ransom, radical sleep in the end time. There is no end of sleep. Multiplying the stars was never easy in end time. Doing it by themselves, stars. In the end time, things static, then still. Would you kill another literary form? A ransom, perhaps, saying again, the dead will still be saying, too many dead, carrying the corpses around. In the mind of the end time, no substitutes, but if you care to try your hand, you may gamble all you have to offer. And what would that be? A mole might do for you, a burrowing thing might do, then a few things extra, some hours for rhetoric before you are released at dawn. Recant, reflect, review, reach out. We've met the enemy, and he is the psychotic karmic flow of our own blowback. That's a view, own it, toughen up. You keep churning, and there's an echo in the world. Need more, stronger, better leadership, need an experienced cop. He's a baby. In the end time, there are theories of dysfunction, delicate wheelworks that need retread. End times, you wait for me. In the mind of the end times, scot-free isn't possible. No interpretation necessary for your cargo, but a tax and a search and a fee and a calibration, what it all adds up to. Then drop it down, send it off worlds, may it disintegrate in peace. I looked into my crystal ball, what did I see? Drones over Jordan coming after me, singing the crimes of man. I've got those Anthropocene blues. Looked into my crystal ball, what did I see? Pleistostoma snails wiped out by a cement company, singing the crimes of man. Walk lightly, tread gently, singing those Anthropocene blues. Looked into my crystal ball, what did I see? Cadres of human beings taking to the streets, changing the frequency, waking up to the Anthropocene blues. And this is called Over the Hiding of Shape of a Bed, a Tilling of Fields. Start from a work of persons and rise up, not like a veil of unsanctified tears. A work in love is never unsanctified enigma, if not but pure flow and consent, or rip in the veil, which is sanctuary for persons, be they same or other. As a waterfall never falling in the same sanctuary twice, an abode for our bodies of union, of persons. Step up to the altar of ancestors together who were union, who were civil, who were convivial behind a veil. Step up, step it up, convivial, show them and rip the veil off the eyes of the enemies of veil. See it another way. Declare the space to be an abode of bodies. See through the waterfall to them behind a veil that was protecting the face of others. Same face, same base, same trace, same pace, same grace, same lace, marriage, a civil veil. Or it is my vow, my vowels, vocables, to be this same, which is never the same one in gender-constructed eros, eros-faced marriage. We are never the same in same-sex love, but law is civil and protects the abode of body. Say it, law is civil, or rival, is civet, is civilized, is civilians, is not chilling. Gone is the time of boundaries, of veils, of tears, of borderlines, of separating cascades, of enigmas and hiddenness. Gone is that chilling time that does not witness the desire to be with a witness of this union behind a boundary, beyond a boundary of same or reciprocal or solidarity pact. It is over, gone and done with that violent time, over of hiding the shape of a bed, the shape of a clearing in a forest where you lie down, soft and mossy spot, and you might come together there, the ancient dark green moss and secluded spot you come to again, you of former hiddenness and sorrow, lie down and come together, making do in the secret chamber, sought that that place. You walked there, you found a secluded spot where deer bedded down, where deer waited, and you stepped there and sank there on knees in a very hot, devoted love, where you ripped the veils from the fear of prying eyes and welcomed the presence of a natural world and say something like, as sky is my witness, as earth is my witness, come hear my weeds and remove these weeds to our sameness, see our sameness, and remove the borders to our sameness as weeds are my witness. Come my hands to your natural weeds and remove the fear of our sameness, see the beauty of our sameness and not sameness. Touch the world with this, the body of our sameness that you know, and blameless, you know, clothing that waits by the side of bedding down, and eyes, you know, in hiding fields of eyes, not prying, as word is my witness, as thou is my witness, as wilderness is my witness. Take the vow in the wilderness. It is over, gone and done with, over and done with being behind the veil, that trail of marriage veil behind a valence. What is the essence of this rhythm as the music which knows no boundary? Rip the boundary that is veil, where it tunes to the body a beautiful sameness, but never the same music twice. Consciousness as in music, and civil. It is civil. It is civil. It is a demand to be civil, as a cascade is civil, as from the tilling of fields. And this world is a cultivation of new things in civility. It is a sure thing to witness for a joining that is not easy, but is a joining work in love. So that came out of some of the protest work. I'm sure it's obvious, same-sex marriage. Okay, this is a curse to the patriarchy, and it's got a long title, something like, night again, it was long, nightmare, bleeding shoulder, Neolithic, patriarchy, dream, world bubbling up through the tide to patriarchy. You trap culture. When a free electron collides with an atom, where does it go? You are continually spreading in all directions since Cro-Magnon, Neolithic patriarchy, out of nothing, anamnesis, unforgetting, out of this legarthon, my unforgetting. There were fields, conditions of space, apocalyptic beauties, but I will never forget you, how you fucked with this world. Oscillations meet you halfway to conquer you. I'm not your photon, your waves of probability. I am your diamond fortress, a poet with projectiles, love and gnosis. I am your Swedish spy agency with hacking and cyber warfare. Winterlight, Fox Acid, servers impersonated as person legitimately linked into profile page. Not your happy profile, but I will never forget how you fucked us over. The trees, the greenery, and so on. The magic, the mystery, all partake of primordial space. And I will carry this consciousness of your crimes into many lifetimes and never wear out my cosmic war on you. You brought it out in me, I must say. Thank you. And this is a little bit from the Gossamer Project, which is an allegory of the rescue of poetry's archive. And there's a little bit in here. Gossamer is not used by any branch of biology, but there are phenomena, soft, sheer, and gauzy, light and flimsy, delicate, tenuous, and airy. Gossamer means summer goose, the time the goose plucks winter down and lines her nest, and the down caught in the tundra sun and breeze trails off glistening in Sanskrit, Gansem. Probably a time some humans collected either the goose or down for themselves. For other species, gossamer is always transient, turns more tensile, pliant, or rigid. That's the fabric of inner bones and muscles and arteries, moth cocoons, caddis fly catch nets, woven with a protein called collagen. The gossamer bodies of plants, dandelion fluff or cotton, are of cellulose. Cellulose is a complex sugar. A way pliancy can supplant stiffness, the way tensile strength prevents fractures. Some gossamers have question, distance divided by original length, and the questions stretch until you break, stretch until you cannot snap back, stretch until you reach some threshold of safety. Poem as lute string, plot rescues sanity, recuses identity, its floating world, and allegory tests calamity, resilient or under siege. And so there's a kind of doppelganger theme here, and these deciders come along and they want to make a copy of the original Anne and turn her into some kind of cyborg for their plot to destroy poetry. So we can't let that happen. So I'll just dip into that a little bit. The double is always present in our psyches. I follow her. What is hidden responding to what is revealed is the binary axis on which this investigation pivots. I hide behind the screen of my own investigation, still longing for my shadowy, more flagrant, more casual other cause. The double writes books on desire and the need to colonize the host bodies of the deciders. Long fascinated by the stories of double women, I pick up the tale of the two Lilas, which presents us with a woman's view and that of a double or shadow. In one story, the woman has two husbands, a demonic husband whom she loathes and an incestuous lover whom she adores. Both women share a single lover. In the other story, he is cunning. In older variants of the tale of the shadow women, the shadow other serves to protect the woman from any defilement or stain at the hands of the demonic husband. The shadow also keeps the pure woman of the real world separate from the lustful, passionate world of the subterranean world. The shadow woman seems to be more like the shard of a dream. I spent her account on medicinal herbs and lozenges, items for longevity. I spent her dollars on salvation, on books of remorse and redemption, on a complete revelatory encyclopedia, on the health of another, on a ticket to the opera. It was Wagner, it was Parsifal, it was on the night of a full moon. He held me and we wept. I hate it, he said. I hate this spectral life. I wish it would all disappear. I said, I love it. And I donated to numerous causes, including those toward the well-being and salvation of many endangered species whose sounds and cries and metabolic thrum and hum might soon be silenced. They wish to interfere with the desires of the original Anne, she who writes this, who struggles in real 21st century agon to warn the world of the impending collapse of generative language, of the decider's impulse to control or destroy the narratives that are anything but master, that are anything but fascist, that are anything but gloomy, that are anything but manipulative. They record heart and breath and tongue and pause and rest in analogues of thinking one thought instanter upon another. And the new weathers take heed of them in our endangered orality. Spool the tape, rewind, digitize, listen, good 1,000 years. I left my marriage. I left multiple lovers. I abandoned the rock star I had served night and day. I walked home late and thought again of our finite coinage, our value as a minted thing. I saw a she who carried my name on Patchen Place, not far from the credit union near where I lived. There was a moon hung low in the sky. I encountered the Ginny of Juna Barnes, whom I had seen frequently in this place decades before aging. Juna had morphed. She had crashed. She was restricted in her motion. Her eyes had the glow of smoldering cinders. The deciders took Anne apart, organ by organ, sinew by sinew, and they copied these parts into the husk of the new Anne with skill and dark intent. As they did this, they would pause, mewling into their sinister autopsy. Little organ of original Anne, what can you do for us now? Little eyes of original Anne, what will you accomplish now? And you, sinews that bind operation of motion, where walk you now? Tongue that composed many ballads and odes for your time, how will you sing? They gloated in their desire to reveal the nothingness of all things and to murder poetry. They could not remove or mutate her consciousness, which stayed intact in the retreat and isolation of original Anne. They made their copy a mockery of original Anne, undoing the mana of original Anne, who they cast into a virtual prison while they went about their plot of alienating humans from their linguistic natures. Language would become separated, torn from its vital dwelling place. Humans would be living out history in a life of unrelating state without poetry. The archive of the multiple voices was endangered, years in the making to preserve breath and intellect, imagination's other place as psychic inscription, and to let humans of the future know some of us were not just killing one another. You would never guess, they said. Look at our creation, a perfect simulacrum. And they looked to a time of acquiescence where the populace would be silenced, where the attention span of humans, ever waning, would ride the waves of mediocrats and hear tell endlessly, monotonously, the slow drip of the undulating fortunes of celebrity worlds and become even more accustomed and inured to the beat and thrum of war, and more in lockdown and more in lockdown. There was a decider of the fifth rank of the state of rectilinear space, as applies to a subject's metabolism, decider of how many gold stars on a bonnet, or for one entering the room of major decision-making, feeling diminished, there was a decider sitting behind a massive desk of protocol and power, facing windows of gray light in sad, anemic offices over which more deciders preside. Deciders of who leaves or stays, who gets laid off, who must be demoted, who closes rank. It was not a happy world. And then there's one last. Let's see. I just want to read one bit for Kevin and the library folk. Okay. This is also from Gossip Murmurs. So the allegory goes on, and the original Anne decides we can rescue the archive by taking it to the tundra, which is absolutely the worst thing you can do for a tape archive, is take it and bury it in the tundra, but it seemed like a good poetic idea. But of course my conservative friends who work with bookbinding and conservation said, so I'll have to write a part 2. I'll bring it here to Atlanta. That's what we're... She sent a message to the base. Whatever you do to me, know this. I know this from Derrida. Archive is shelter. Archive is the disembodied voice of a palpable consciousness. Archive is a jumbled dream. Archive needs poetry you must never forget. Archive is inscription, is aspiration. Archive tells many stories. I am Archon, and a mere inscripted postcard is archive. When we return to our speech and start our own country, take this as a directive. Memory of an animal is also yours. Archive, all opposable thumbs we have record of in many wisdom identities. Archive's murmur circulates around the room. Archive lets originals breathe. You can't temper with archive. It's a strange cosmology. Archive is antithesis to a war on memory and stealing a poet fire. Archive is the tender footprint. Archive will not tread on the footprints of the most vulnerable. Archive is a trust. Let archive record the names of those going out of this world. Tristan, Albatross, all disappeared, all suicided. Archive listens into the margins. Archive is a privileged topology. Archive exists as a map of the future beyond the exigencies of electronic media, which has transformed the relative reality of Homo sapiens sapiens. If you are good at this, please memorize. Are you good at this? Memorize archive. Archive could be safe from composite strife. Gain intellectual control of the collection. Consider cassette tape life expectancy. Water pipes run through storage space. Materials are housed in a 100-year flood plan with environmental swings. No climate control. Security. Multiple keys to storage exist. The space is not secured. Walls that leave space at ceiling heights can be easily breached. Digital collections on CDs which are at risk themselves due to disk failure and equipment obsolescence. Archive is housed by and reanimates sentient beings. Archive is nest, is house, is reverie. Archive will hold you, and the line comes, I swear it, from the breath. Archive is Obad, is Alba, is Tagalid, is seduction. Archive is dying, and archive is not dying. Who lives to push the buttons to install the implants of archive? A far agent, a forest, a mountain to climb, an orange sunset, a cloth for the body, strong ropes to circle and carry, dynamite with an app for soil content, an app to read constellations in the sky. Moon, a fingernail above you is a modest proposal, and sometimes a wildebeest on the tundra remembers a former life, and an albatross crossed your shadow at sea one day. Tristan, whose name means sadness, quested the grail and drank a love potion. This is the sublimated test of future identity. Identity. T, 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 T. Identity, T, 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 T. Thank you. So, just a few more here. This is a little bit from a text, a book-length poem called Jaguar Harmonics. It's around the sort of shamanic practice around ayahuasca and sort of the visionary tradition of, and I think of my Beat friends and Ginsberg and Burroughs's The Yahé Letters. Maybe some of you know the larger edition, which is so wonderful, trying to piece those parts back together, because it's kind of a constructed text, but it's also based on actual experience. So I'll just dip into a little of it and then go to the end, which is the kind of homage where I also cut in lines of Ginsberg and Burroughs. Of tinsel, you want to say insulated, nary scold a child woman made of what? Of person. Nay, nay, go down, all a hook of lumen makes of and woven of seem light. Person, what do you know of light? Of your meme of tour of an ordinary wild mind person, and person as journey man woman, as if you were coming up through inchoate eons to mental talk, 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 a person woven of psychotropic shards, fur and bone, Puntamayo, the source, condor flight, long lay low, longs to sink down here, prowl, mud, knee high, longing, jaguar, lope. If you were summoned, winging, fly low, would believe you your mental wingspan. If you were listening, spoken to in neutral speech, would believe you who rules in the night, top of the food chain. How far back does a seer go, and in what form? 43,000 BCE. Person woven of multiple mammal bands, one of them ominous and lumbering and cord around your waist. Person woven of vulnerability, don't kill it so that the ecosphere takes notice, miles underground of itself on top of you. Ectos, outside, plasma, that which has form, ectoplasm, the paranormal. What tries to tell us of mammal stealth, active filaments, and unprecedented warnings with consonants of H and W and hissing sounds and groan, hey, 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 and I'll say it again, the suffering on this land, palpable right under you, what done to the indigenous ones, rip and torture of their person, emasculation, and to the land, and to the science, and to the medicine, to the children, the whole genocide. What's summoning to tell you this? Hey, 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 hey. Don't like it, don't do it, don't like it, don't do it. Hydraulic fracturing, hey, hey, hey. Don't like it, don't do it, don't like it, don't do it. Hydraulic fracturing, hey, 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 shattering under you. Don't do it. Person woven of performing sutras. Don't do it. And the thunder said, don't do it. And symmetry said, hey, hey, hey. And gambles to the flight of the asteroid. Person woven of nimble words, mere fractions of them, of Og and R and Ra, as an antidote to gloom, woven of white poppy, gar, ra, 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 satsa, ma, 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 whist, 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 hey, 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 hey. And the nimbus of a swerve, as if it could move light years in topic brain. Oh, Asia, her sunny house cat in stripes would pounce upon you. And you can't just go around killing and conquering persons. You can't just go around conquering persons. You can't just take them out at midnight and rape and slaughter and kill persons. Feeling alone, I, he wasn't singing your vision in. Feeling alone, person alone, Curandera wasn't singing your vision. I, Pleiades wasn't singing it in, sending it in. I, is anything central? Can you strive? Can you cure? Are you votive entity? The baby jaguar is blind at first. What are your roots and what are your severances and what do they constitute of imagination? Do you stalk? Can you climb? What is the link to the link to the link of the trance of the trace of your heat coil? Now you are quick, soon you will be ancestor, kinetics of your own chemistry, and where are you from? What men might be in being? Areolito, areolito. Vision to oscillate with my Ginsberg, my Burroughs, I sang, I sang. With Yahweh, with Ginsberg, Yahweh, I sang. With Burroughs, Yahweh, I sang. A lump little fellow into the Carandero sang and sang. Maestro jungle outskirts pool Kalpa behind the gas work field. Talks a lot, power, the curing cooks the universe together. Curing talks a lot, the drink, the hold it together. Night drinking session, hut and outskirts, sincere and drugscape. Ramon came over to hut, crooning, a blowing, a fresh batch and blowing, cigarette and pipe smoke. Over the cup mouth I rose, and Ramon came forth, an old crooner, shooting star, Areolito. Full moon I served up, Areolito. Whole fucking cosmos broke loose around me. Mosquitoes vomiting, silly to make this a note, puff of smoke, mere death, and real death, all covered with snake, like a snake seraph, colored serpents in Oreo all around my body, encircling. Snake vomits the universe. Ivaro with headdress and fangs vomiting, the murder of the universe, death to come. Went back and lay down, bastante curandero, heart rayed with spectral presences was what I got. Transfiguration, who believe in summon heroes, the great stake, the great stalk of life and death. Reproduction of the last physical move, great being approaching you in black hole of God knows, and over the cup mouth I rose. Lay back on her back, how strong you are, she said. Image, how strong. Peer into mystery, all creation present, how strong you are. Will you stand up, or in for me, will you stand up? Of our moving only image I threw myself upon, so real, so phantom real, and not born yet, days old, slightly fermented. And what I thought was great mind was false. So, let's see where to go from here. A little bit of Manatee. So this was another book-length project, The Manatee Humanity, and involved looking at this life form, very, very ancient, going back with the elephant. I went to the wonderful Museum of Skeletons in Paris, seeing the incredible march of the skeletons. I'm not sure where they're all headed, but a lot to extinction. But I talk about this poem. It involves something called the Kala Chakra initiation, and sort of using the manatee form. I had an encounter with a manatee in a theme park in, I guess it was the Miami Aquarium. A lone manatee, very scarred, female manatee, and I describe it here. And the Buddhist view is that all life forms, she seemed like an ancient soul and contemplative in her demeanor, huge, Buddha-like. I fancied receiving a kind of transmission from her example, which was as witness to cruel captivity. The Buddhist view is that all life forms are interrelated through their evolutionary history, and that animal and human minds are both participants in reality. We share the planet with many non-human temporalities. Minds exist at the quantum level, below the level of atoms and subatomic particles. As is said, minds never come from nothing or go to nothing. I visualized the manatee's realm in the shallow pool as a shrine. I perceived her less as a victim and more as a poetic deity, and I felt she had the greater sympathy for me. The manatee ostensibly has no use in the current world. It's odd how creatures, pacifistic, transcendent even, go extinct as human realms of cruelty, plunder, and war grind on. And another thing about the manatee, it has this ancient, I reference that too later, but the more gray matter in the brain than man, thinking archivally deeper than man. And the name for the manatee comes from a Carib word, manitou, meaning breast. Anyway, did research, went and tried to hang out with manatees, and it was Jeb Bush. The whole project was triggered by Jeb Bush taking the manatee off the endangered species list in Florida. So sometimes you have to respond, things like that. So it turned into this whole, really a meditation. I'll just read a little from the sort of Now represent your representation in the symbolic code of language, manatee, humanity, and run your hand along a restless spine. It was a time of fossil fuel priorities, a precious business time. That's what they'll say about us centuries hence. It was a busy, get on with it business time, so better get on with it time. That's what they'll say about us. What were they thinking? It was commodification, fun hog time, modification time, got on with time. We killed time, will be shamed over in our future time, will be surely more stressed in time. That's what they'll be saying, that's what they'll say. They got on with it, saying about us, going nowhere but going down, and us all with them. What were they thinking in their selfish minds? Us. That's what they'll say about us, generations hence. How living then hence without so many animals then. That's what they'll say about us. They let the animals die. They let the plants die. They killed the air. They killed the water. They killed each other. They killed language. Humdrum Paleolithic, where we would talk in sweet time notches. Well, that's over. Where did that ever evolve to? Then along 20,000 years of keeping time once, keeping it for all and moving it, time forward and it, the art forward and it, humanity forward. And now they want to kill it. Really, they killed it. Then along rim of Babylonian, rim of Egyptian, 5,000 years once ago. Such progress, they kill all that too. Then but now, my solar day, my lunar month, my solar year, my speed, I inherited from them. What time is it now? And we resumed our talk after these excessive outbreaks, discussing the nature of calibration, how different times give the peculiarities and particulars of people and praxis and place and thought systems and become their own zones in this. We spoke of lustrations and the architectures of spiritual places, of constructing mandalas with colored sands, and the women who dance on the precipice of eclipses, performance and ritual under arches, pillars that delineate the way to move, as a chorus might, open atriums, they're moving into the augur space, the place of frequent animal sacrifice. We're mere sidereal time, two passages of the mean sun time, he cautioned, and that is relative. Both he cautioned further, it's quite unconscionably relative. That doesn't explain, I protested, the way we brutalize time. The manatee is found in shallow, slow-moving rivers. The manatee moves in estuaries, moves in saltwater bays. The manatee in moving moves gently. The manatee is to be found in canals and coastal areas. The manatee is a migratory animal. The manatee is gentle and slow-moving. The West Indian manatee has no natural enemies. The manatee has no natural enemies but unnatural man. The manatee is constantly threatened by man, unnaturally, man with his boats and plastic and attitude. The manatee often drowns in canal locks of man, man who makes no concession to manatee. The manatee dies in flood control structures, man who makes no concession nor cares of manatee life, manatee fortune. The manatee dies in collision with watercraft, man who does not protect the manatee. What steward of the earth is this unnatural man? Makes no concession to manatee. The manatee often dies with the ingestion of fish hooks, man who unnaturally makes no concession. The manatee dies from litter and monofilament lines. Man who is rank in attitude has no use for manatee. The manatee dies entrapped in crab trap lines. Manatee dies from loss of habitat claimed by man. Manatee maimed by man. The manatee could be aided by man. Man, oh aid the manatee. Come to the manatee heart. A manatee calf is born every 2 to 5 years. A manatee gestates for a year in the manatee womb. 8,400 miles of tidal waters could be for the manatee. 10,000 miles of canals would they all be for the manatee. The manatee has more gray matter in the brain than man. The manatee is perhaps thinking archivally deeper than man. Ancient days of manatee, so many thousands of years. Manatee mind. What is the mind of manatee? The manatee has no natural enemies. The manatee is completely herbivorous. The metabolism of the manatee is slow, moves slowly. The manatee moves in estuaries, moves in saltwater bays. Oscillations of the manatee moving between manatee ears, ears of the manatee mother and manatee offspring. Manatee are our sirenians and live in the house of the sirens. Where are the human sanctuaries for manatee, manatees, mermaids, sirens singing? Move slowly the manatee mother and calf so bonded, female manatee bonded with her just one manatee offspring. Om mane padme hum om. Mane, humanity, hum, om, mane, manatee, hum, om, mane, padme, manatee, hum, om, mane, padme, manatee, humanity, hum, 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 hum. Hungry ghost, a morphology all by itself between our realms. Hungry ghost that dwells in consciousness that torments our desire. Sexy ghost, a performer, a demon, a gadfly. To never have enough, be enough, get enough. To never have enough, be enough, get enough. Dancing on coals. It's a much longer piece, but So I think I should close with, this is a poem chant dedicated to the Dalai Lama, and I'm so happy to hear he's an honorary professor, distinguished professor. That's a great that's wonderful to hear that. And it's called Chenrezig Walks Among Us, and Chenrezig is the Tibetan word for the Avalokiteshvara. Maybe some of you know, great bodhisattva, and the name literally means something like he who responds to the cries, the sounds of the world below, supplicating. And so he who looks down and hears and responds to the sounds of suffering humanity. So I just need to. Chenrezig walks among us. Swept away all suffering, gathered it up in a quantum leap, sucked it up till it returned. And when he looked back over his shoulder and saw all suffering come back in a great wave, all suffering riding and filling up nooks and crannies and crevices and templates of the world, all suffering filling neurons and quarks and leptons, troubling minds of fathers, mothers, sisters, brothers, lovers, all sentient beings suffering. Toxins of passion, aggression, ignorance in the middle of the night, strapped in demon mind, oh, where to hide when all pounding suffering rides in and mind splits in 1,000 pieces. Chenrezig wept and head split in 1,000 pieces, and mighty red fire Buddha Amitabha leans in and puts the puzzle back together, wires it with tantric thread, adds some extra arms, extra heads, this wisdom body to rid the world of all suffering. More arms and heads take charge, build it better, a deity to maximize power of bodhicitta to ease all suffering. And now Chenrezig had 1,000 arms in all directions of space with numerous accoutrements, and under those arms 1,000 hearts better to banish all suffering, and mighty red fire Amitabha leans in more suffering, puts the puzzle back together, alleviate suffering. And now Chenrezig had these 1,000 arms in all directions of space, and under those arms, those hearts better to banish all suffering of Tibet, of India, Pakistan, where his crystallized land, wherever map of suffering he alights on, keep emptying Europe, USA, empty Israel, Palestine, empty China, Russia, Syria, Japan, Haiti, Yemen, empty all suffering. Chenrezig walks among us, humble prince toward all systems of empire. Chenrezig walks among us as all constituent forms, precious ink, diamond, scepter, skull cup of blood, thigh bone, trumpet, dissolve in mind, and lotus at his feet rises again through cracks of a concrete city or charnel grounds, eternal war. Star flowers shoot at dark of a distant galaxy. Anywhere out of this world, his heart is that big, and Dharma gates are endless. He enters every one of them. Typhoons and famine dissolves. Emptiness has formed to come back at you, and will relight the butter lamp gone out in panic of the dark age. Banish the syndicates of samsara. Put away your texts of doom. Turn the wheel again in our fragile Anthropocene. Chenrezig walks among us, and no identity endures, yet bodhisattvas are ever active. Invisible elves, swirling shamans, shape-shifting wizards every hour dedicate the merit. No end time here, but aspiration to press harder. Don't tarry, keep trying, sweeping all suffering. Keep thou with mudra, mantra, and for others golden thread of enlightening in every space, in all directions of space. Push against the darkness. Push against the darkness. Push against the darkness. Against the darkness our Cartesian doubt, quantum dimensions, worry, banish, worry, while Dharma bends in all dimensions simultaneously, and extinction is nothing but the extinction of all suffering inside the extinction of self, whose form is emptiness, and extinction is nothing to the power of compassion. Chenrezig walks among us, scientist of compassion, and we push against the darkness. Push against the darkness. Push against the darkness. Push against the darkness. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.